Doesn't work as well, does it? Hey y'all, it's Andrew Reed with Mossy Creek Mushrooms, and today I want to talk to you about a little organism known as the ugly fungling, also known as the King Blue. So this is going to be a strain video. I've been getting a lot of requests for those, so I'm planning on putting out a lot more strain videos for you guys this year, especially since we have so many strains that we've trialed and have been just working with breeding new ones, bringing wild ones in, trialing all of them, and seeing which ones are the most successful. I also plan on ordering strains in from other companies, trialing those out, and then trying to give you guys the down low on how they worked for me. Things are going to be different in your grow room, so not everything is going to respond exactly as it responds in my grow room. You may get different colors, you may get different yields. Strains do not respond to different conditions the same way every time, you know. So, all of that said, let's talk about the King Blue. Just a little bit of backstory on it. The King Blue is the first cross I've ever done. It was a cross between a blue oyster and an elm oyster. I think I'm right on that. It was a cross to see if it was possible for me to even really breed mushrooms. And I had really lucked out in this way because the King Blues turned out to be, honestly, one of the best workhorse strains that I've seen. And I mean, companies like Main Cap and Stem, they sell blocks of it now. Lenny Rockwell sells liquid culture of it. I believe Norspore even sells my strain. So it's kind of crazy to see just how much that strain took off. And I've got a lot of others that are upcoming. But the Ugly Fungling was my old original. So, and I know that I've actually done a video called Strainer Things. But that wasn't like a clear strain description video. I really just kind of wanted to get into my experience with King Blue and how it responds. So, given its history as my first cross, the King Blue physical description would really be something more like instead of a traditional oyster with hard, thin stems that support a meaty cap, the King Blue is meaty from beginning to end. The thing has got roughly the same texture from the edge of the cap all the way down to where the mushroom touches the substrate. And it is phenomenal texture. Phenomenal texture, phenomenal taste. One forewarning before everybody rushes off and goes and buys that strain off my website. The King Blue is not the best oyster for new growers. You should grow a couple of other easier to grow oysters because there are a couple of cons. And I'm going to go into the cons first in how to grow King Blue. Then we'll get into the pros. The main problem that I can see with King Blue for the newer grower is that it does suffer from blotch more easily than a lot of other oysters. So if your humidifier is not clean, and you're producing lots of contaminated air, you are likely going to have blotch on your King Blues. They do suffer blotch more readily in the heat than in the cold, but I think that is and more of the nature of the slow metabolism of winter, bacteria than it is of the King Blue. I think the King Blue's immune system. I don't think the King Blue's immune system is stronger in the cold. It is just that it has the advantage because, let's just face it, white rock mushrooms tend to have the advantage in cooler weather when it comes to growth anyways. So, on the other side of the blotch issue, King Blue suffers a little bit more from dryness. It can dry out a little bit easier. So there is a much smaller eye of the needle that you've got to thread in order to really get that mushroom right in the groove. So you have to have better control over your conditions with the King Blue oyster than you do with, let's say, Mother of Pearl or BS8 or Lambert's 123, something like that. That said, it's absolutely worth growing, and it's worth learning for the taste and the texture, let alone the fact that about 30% of our production here is still King Blue because it is a workhorse mushroom. It is, going into the pros here, it is heavy. It is big. It fills a box well. The chef can use the entire mushroom, which they're going to like. And the flavor and texture are phenomenal. So there's a lot of pros to that. I think our record breaker, I've got it here in my notes, our record breaking flush for us was 4.2 pounds on the first flush. That is phenomenal, right? That is absolutely phenomenal. And again, that's record. That is not average. Our average yields are much closer to like 2.5 to 3 pounds. The last time I did a video, I think I was regularly getting 2.9 pounds, 2.5 to, you know, the little, anywhere from 2.6 to 2.9. I think I even had a cluster in the last video that showed 3.1. I didn't collect any of that today. We were picking a little early, but I did get some flushes that were obviously over 2.5 pounds. Shown them on the scale for you guys. I can pull the B-roll up here for you, just to kind of show you like that's what our average at yield size is. On Fridays we always strip the grow room, so we pick stuff whether it's early or not. So I didn't get the King Blues as big as I wanted them for the video, but you can see them in the last video. If you want to go back, you can see some clusters that are even bigger than what I've got here. They're not quite as pretty because these cold temperatures have got my blues blue, like dark blue, sometimes purple in places. The pro as a cultivator for King Blue is the speed as well as the yield. It is fast. It incubates much quicker than most strains. It almost half the time for me for our other oysters. I mean, anywhere from half to 3/4 of the amount of time that it would normally take, you know, to get an oyster block to your grow room. So that means faster ROIs, but it also, you know, comes with that con of it's got speed and yield and flavor, and it seems like it's got everything. But the one thing it doesn't have is it needs to be babied just a little bit. I will say that the King Blue has a wide range of conditions it can fruit in as far as temperature goes. I've seen it, like we grow it in the summer, we grow it in the winter. In the wintertime, my grow rooms are readily, you know, at the coldest time of year, getting down to upper 40s, lower 50s. We do try to keep it above that, but, you know, open warehouse and all. And then in the summertime, you know, we're getting temperatures approaching 80, and the King Blue does suffer more from blotch. But King Blue doesn't express heat stress the way that like Mother of Pearl does. Like a lot of strains, when they're suffering heat stress, they grow out and they just kind of go limp, and they'll just kind of flop down and grow real long and almost like they're got way too much CO2 to them. But the King Blue stays short, stays fat, so even with the higher amount of CO2 or the heat stress to it, it may blotch out a little bit more, so you've got to reset your blocks more often. But you have that bigger, fuller cluster. That said, I don't really consider it like a summertime mushroom, but it is a wide range growing mushroom and can handle like contamination in a block much easier than a lot of other strains. And I think that's from the aggressive side of it. That said, the blotch issue is the main con that I have for it. So you really got to dial in your room, really got to get your cleaning down. And once you have those two things down, your humidity and your cleaning, then you're usually pretty good. Usually pretty good to go on the King Blue. We call it the ugly fungling. In jest, obviously I don't think that the actual end-use mushroom is very ugly. It is really the pins. The pins come out in a very strange, very warty. Now, this said, this seems to be the way fatter stemmed oysters pin. They seem to pin with this kind of ugly, warty, rolling, cracked kind of shape to it. And then as they grow out into usually very beautiful mushrooms. You do get the occasional cluster that never really does seem to get, you know, prom worthy, but they put on a show. Really, for that, guys, I mean, King Blue is a strain that we highly recommend, not just because it's ours. I mean, even if you get it from Lenny or Main Cap and Stem or North Spore, I highly, highly recommend the King Blue oyster. It is fast growing, and it will teach you so much about your grow room. It is the great instructor. It is the great instructor to take you from your very first, early successes, and then you're going to fail forward with this strain, right? The first time you grow it may be amazing, and then as soon as you think you've got things figured out, King Blue kind of throws you for a little bit of a loop. That said, here's the strategy for handling most of that. If something goes wrong, usually you walk up to a King Blue block, pull off that cluster that's blotched or heat stressed or whatever, reset the whole block, and just let it fruit again. Your second flushes will be bigger. So what you don't get on the first flush, you're probably going to get on the second flush. And most people will have seen that once you reset those blocks, go clean your humidifier, you're good to go. The second flush almost always comes out much prettier than the second. So with that, y'all, I will have some other strain videos coming for you guys. We've got some other Pearl plans, a Pathfinder. I'm actually taking B-roll of those right now. So I want to get you guys an entire video strain catalog going and see if we can't get you guys some ideas of how the most common strains in the industry really work out in a less than ideal grow room setting, right? Because that's what most of us are working with. Well, with that, y'all, I don't really have much more to say other than if any of you guys have experience with King Blue and it in the course of your work or hobby or whatever, like if you've ever grown it and you've got an experience with it that you'd like to share, please leave a comment down below about it. I'd like to start using the comments section as a way of like, okay, let's say I start the strain video and I tell you about my experience with Lambert's 123, King Blue, North Force Snow, 3015 from Amisil, something like that. Then you guys can share your experiences in there and in the comments, and it won't just be my voice, it'll be everyone's voice. And that way we can all learn together how these strains work using this as a framework. So please, if you have experience with King Blue, leave a comment down below. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, y'all, keep swanning culture.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Okay.